Helen. I'm the parent.
And I'm Debs. I'm the parenting practitioner at CAMS.
So about 2 years ago, I met Deb. So at about 2.5 years old, my son started presenting with challenging behaviour. Was picked up by the nursery, and at the time, obviously didn't know too much about challenging behaviour. We thought he was just a excitable boy. We decided to move him to a smaller nursery. That didn't work out, unfortunately, and we ended up going for assessment for autism. During the time, we had a meeting with the paediatrician. The paediatrician recommended the Incredible Years programme for challenging behaviour. His behaviour would display as aggressive. He would throw things, he would lash out, he would have really, really long tantrums, he would push, absolutely anything he would do. He would break things, knock things over. And so it was really quite challenging at home, but especially in the setting. His behaviour was worse in the setting, which was obviously a problem because he was hurting other children. So it was quite an upsetting time. So I took the Incredible Years leaflet, and I remember sitting in a soft play, filling it out, thinking, what am I going to do? You know, I really hope this can help. Had an appointment with Debs, so I went to see her face to face, and I remember sitting on the sofa opposite Deborah. She showed me the Incredible Years pyramid, and she said, right, we start with the child-led play, and this pyramid went up several steps right the way up to your discipline. And I remember crying and saying, no, I need to know how to deal with his behaviour. And Deborah was as kind as always and said, we have to start, everything starts with child-led play. So the course started in, I think it was September 22, if I remember rightly. And alongside that, I also did a More Than Words course because he had a speech delay. The two courses ran side by side, so both did one on a Monday, one on a Friday, and they both sort of intertwined between each other, so there was strategies within both that either fit together or were the same. Within, I want to say, a couple of weeks of child-led play, we started seeing a difference. My husband took a little bit longer to get on board because he's can be quite old-fashioned, and he was like, oh well, we never did this when I was younger. And I said, look, this is what choice do we have? This is the only way we're going to get through this. So he would sit and observe me, and so I would sit with Ted, with little pockets of time in the day, just watching him play. At the beginning, Ted did not like me to intrude on his game. So if I picked up a toy that he was playing with alongside him, he wouldn't like it. He would take it off me. So I would just sit next to him and observe what he was doing and say things like, oh, I see you're playing with your little dinosaur. Oh, you know, the dinosaur's walking along, and just coach him and just comment on everything he was doing. And after a while, I think it was only a couple of weeks, he would start with a bit more eye contact, which was great. And I found the child-led play would increase the bond between us. So he was a much calmer child. And at the time, he did just like to play on his own. There was absolutely no way we could introduce another child. As the weeks went on, Deb would come every week, and we'd continue through the stages of the Incredible Years journey. And each week there'd be something new for me to try. And he to be fair to him, he responded to it.
Because you ran with it. You did it every day. You were very, very conscientious. You were ready for it, weren't you? You were ready to just kind of grab all the strategies and just throw yourself into them. Yeah.
For me, it was all or nothing. This was all I had to run with, because his behaviour was just so awful. I'd pick him up from the setting, and I'd have massive anxiety of, oh, what's he done today? Oh, he's hit another child, he's threw something. It'd be awful. So I would talk to the staff, and I would say, right, I'm doing this at home, could you do that with him? So some of them would do it with him. And during his early years journey, he was with, I think he was 4 or 5 different settings before he started school. So that was quite difficult for getting him to settle in. I mean, obviously at the time he wasn't playing with other kids. To him, it didn't really matter. As long as he was getting his own way and he had his own time, he was fine. So, yeah, the course continued. We did a lot more persistence coaching. We did reducing questions, which was incredibly hard. Especially for a child who struggles with communication. Having the asking him questions would just sort of set him off and get him frustrated, and he'd end up just either getting up and walking away or turning his back on you. I remember there was one day my husband came in and said to him, "Oh, what are you doing, Ted? What colour is that? What's this?" And it was just firing questions at him, and he got up and walked off. And later on in the day, I said to my husband, how would you feel if you'd come in from work and I just started firing questions at you? You'd tell me to go away because you just can't cope with it. I said, it's exactly the same for him. And then he says, well, how do I do this? How do I reduce the questions? So it was very difficult, but I found that if you said, I see you are playing with your dinosaurs, I see you are moving your car along, it kind of just snowballed from there. I mean, now and again I'd ask him a question and think, oh, right, okay, pull it back and start again.
Yeah, you were letting go of it. I am interjecting, but you were letting go of your desire to teach, wasn't it? Because, you know, you're saying, how many have we got? What's this? Yeah, and you let go of that. And that it's hard, that. It's difficult.
It's very, very difficult. I mean, even to this day, if I sit down with him, I still do it. And it does take him a little bit of time to answer. But I'm just very mindful that he takes a bit of time. But you've just got to really think about how you kind of sort of plan the conversation of what you're going to have with him. I also found descriptive commentary very good. That was really good. I did that with my daughter. I tried it out on her upstairs. I went in her room, she was playing with a Lego, and I sat down and I just described everything that she was doing. And she looked at me and she went, "Oh, Mummy, would you speak to me like that all the time?"
Oh, I remember that.
I was like, yes,
powerful.
Yes. She says, I like this. I like this. And so that was from a child who was, who could tell me what it was like and how it felt. That was really nice. So I thought, that must be how he feels. And then we moved on to, I think it was praise. There was ignore, which was very difficult. So I would have to ignore bad behaviour unless it was dangerous. And that was a very difficult time because all he wanted was my attention. So I would just, if he was playing and threw something, I would just get up and walk out. And he would follow me into the kitchen and I'd just ignore him, and he'd start crying and he would scream and he would open and shut cupboard doors. He might knock a chair over and I would just ignore him. And then he'd start to calm down. And if he went and sat down, he was sat quiet, I'd then turn my attention back to him and say, "Oh, you're sitting so beautifully. You're so calm now. Shall we go and play?" And then we'd go back and play.
Revisiting.
And just it was very, very hard to do, especially when he was so upset, to just kind of ignore the bad behaviour. But it works, or it worked for him. And then we had the praise, which still to this day works like a dream. So if he was doing something, if the kids were sat at the kitchen table, for example, eating the tea, my daughter was eating hers, no problem. He was messing about, he was on and off the chair, he was running around the table. I would ignore his behaviour and just heavily praise my daughter. And he would see that, and then he would come and he would sort of sit, and then I would divert the attention back to him and heavily praise again. So that really works. It worked for the very long journey of toileting. It was an extremely long journey, but he got it in the end. And the praise that he gets still to this day for doing it, he loves. You can see the face lights up. The praise is really good. And I know at school currently they do things with stamps and praise, and he just absorbs it. He loves it. So all the chapters so far had been absolutely wonderful for him. I mean, don't get me wrong, he still has his moments to this day, but they are very, very few and nowhere near as long. So he's a different child.
The Incredible Years is an evidence-based parenting program. So there's over about 35 years worth of evidence now. It was Caroline Webster Stratton who brought together different aspects of like behaviourism and social learning theory to bring this program about. And I think any good evidence-based parenting program will follow a similar, if slightly different, process. We always start with the relationship at the beginning. We think about the pyramid shape, it's bigger at the bottom because what we absolutely know is the research shows and experience shows us that when we start to get alongside our children with no power struggles, because usually by the time I meet parents, everybody's upset, there's lots of power struggles, like Helen says, sometimes there's shouting, there's tears, frustration. So we kind of find moments in the day when there are no power struggles, you get alongside your child and the process begins with the child-led play. So that's it. So by the time we do move up and go into things like rules and routines and consequences, what we absolutely know is a lot of those behaviours have reduced and the relationship is better, there's bonding, the child's more invested in the parent because the relationship's better, so they're more likely to follow your limit setting and requests. And by the time we get there, the parent, if they've grabbed hold of it and ran with the program, they've changed the way they're approaching the child. I do think lots of parents that I meet are similar but very different to Helen in that, there's sometimes tears, they're upset, they're feeling a bit desperate. What I noticed about Helen was you really were ready to change. You think about the cycle of change. You weren't thinking about it. You weren't wanting somebody else to do it. You actually thought, I know something's got to change and I'm going to change this. Helen, within the first few weeks, was exactly where she needed to be, not quite trusting the process, but giving it a go. And we did a lot of work, which we do with all the parents, thinking about their thoughts, their feelings, their behaviour, how it impacts the child. And I think in terms of the process, although it started going well in the first few weeks and you wanted to go ahead and we did the assessment, and we kind of clicked, straight away. We want the approach is very collaborative, non-judgmental, and I hope most parents feel that as part of the assessment and in the first few weeks. But you did what lots of parents do, what we all do, what I do. If we're on any process of change, sometimes you rush forward, things are going well, and then sometimes it feels terrible again, and it's balancing that we're going backwards and now we're going forwards, things are going well, but it's trusting the process, and I think you found that quite easy. And I do think in a group or home coaching, anyone that is putting the strategies into place, you do see that process. If they can trust it, change will happen. If the parent can change, everything will change.
At the time, before we started, it was not an enjoyable experience. There was a lot of tears. There was a lot of, I'm a terrible mum. Why did we have another child? Why is he so grumpy? Why is he so aggressive? It was just awful, and it was obviously impacting our older child as well, because she didn't want to interact with him either. So we had two very separate children. So I think when you've got when you have children, you've got this idea of what it will be like, you know, what the child will be like, what you do with them, you know, all the really nice things, but nobody ever prepares you for if it doesn't go to plan. And I'm quite, I like to plan things. I'm quite organised. So when things don't go well, I don't really take it very well. And I have had to learn very quickly that, you know, life just doesn't work out like that, and you've just got to go with it. And back then I didn't really have a bond with him. He was just somebody who, I was his mother, and I loved him dearly, but he was so hard work. He was so hard to connect with. And then doing even the child-led play, even for just a few weeks, I found more of a connection with him. And after a while, he would seek me out to play with me, and I would take any opportunity to sort of sit on the floor with him. And I was talking to my husband the other day about this, that when the kids are quiet, we tend to just leave them.
Oh, it's the attention rule. Do you remember the attention rule?
Yeah, we just leave them, and we go and do, you know, the washing done or put the tea on. And it was only when they were being, you know, naughty or loud or whatever that they would get attention. So we had to flip that. And when he was sat quiet, calm, playing with his toys, that's when I would come in and interject and say, "Oh, you're playing beautifully. You are so calm," and label his emotions and describe what he was doing. And then eventually I would start to, as they call, intrude on his game. So then I would take one of his toys that he had in the game and play sort of alongside him, and he would let me do it. And then after a while, I would then bring my husband in, and then my husband would try. And there'd be good weeks and there'd be bad weeks. So Deb would turn up on a Friday, and I'd say either, it's gone really well this week, we've done this, and he's responded. Other weeks, oh, we've gone backwards, he's done this, he's done that, it's been so horrible. And Deb would say, tomorrow's another day, you know, put it down. It's been, you know, challenging day. You've got through it, you've done your best, start again tomorrow. And that's what I had to do. It was a journey, not only to sort of get to know my little boy, but it was also a journey of how I handled the stress, because I was so anxious, and I found that things would work better when I managed to stay calm, which was very, very hard during the ignore stage, when you have to ignore the bad behaviour, because your go-to is tell them off, and you couldn't tell him off like shout, because
there's no telling off in IY.
No,
is there?
There's no telling. It was very difficult. Couldn't tell him no. Can't tell them off. So it's very, very difficult, and that I found challenging. But once I sort of got to grips with what I was doing, and I'd get down on his level, I'd look him in the eye, and I would say, you know, don't do that. It hurts people. Do it in a very calm manner, and I would have to really try to keep a lid on things, because when you grow up and when you're a parent, your go-to is, right, tell them off. They need to know who's boss.
And you did let go of that. You did. You started just not revisiting the behaviour, and what we know, what the research shows, that a lot of those behaviours will extinguish if they will disappear if they're not giving that attention with attention for all the right things, promoting all the behaviours you want to see more of. And you did it. You did it in front of my eyes. You did it every week, like, hey, I
mean, don't get me wrong. Even to this day, I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect. I still snap like the best of them.
Yes.
And his reaction is the same. He gets really upset. If I shout, he gets very upset. And then then you've got to bring it back, and you say, I'm very sorry for shouting. Mummy shouldn't have shouted. And then you try and pull it back and bring it back round. And it is very hard. And I remember at one of the group sessions that I went to, we talked about the anxiety curve. And one of the best pieces of advice I've ever had is stay in the green. If you stay in the green, even when it's absolutely kicking off around you, if you stay in the green, you will get control of the situation quicker.
Be the calm in their storm, isn't it? Yeah,
and that is what they need.
And can I just ask, do you remember, because we talked about it a lot, and you might not, but what you're describing, I think, in the whole, like, when things don't go well, and sometimes we snap because we're human. I snap, I'm sure Amy snaps, we all snap. And when our window of tolerance is slim, but what you're doing is, because you're filling up his psychological piggy bank so much with all the lovely thing, all the connection, all the play, all the recognition, that when we and this is part of the programme, that when we do snap, or things go wrong, or we have to put in a consequence or implement a new rule, it's okay to take a little bit out of his psychological piggy bank, because he absolutely knows it's still love. The play isn't a reward, your attention isn't a reward, it will still be there. And you do that, and you're a parent, and there isn't a parent around who doesn't snap or lose the temper from time to time.
One parent asked me, how do you not shout? And I said, well, don't get me wrong, I do still sometimes shout, and again, it all depends on where I am emotionally. If I'm experiencing a period of stress or anxiety, my tolerance level is.
And then what do you see in the children?
And then the children absorb it.
Yeah, it goes in the figure of 8, doesn't it? It's that your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviour impacts them, and it goes like that. And I think in the IY at the beginning, what we're trying to do is just break that negative cycle at the beginning, and
I remember early on, especially after doing the child-led play, when I had a much better connection with him, I found leaving him in the house very, very difficult, because there was a time where he wouldn't know whether I'd gone.
So we did that.
Whether it wouldn't matter whether I was there or not. Once the bond was strengthened, I wasn't able to leave the house without him. If I left the house, he would scream the place down. So I remember Deb had said, "Mike, you tell him what is going to happen, the now and the next." So that is what I did. So me and my husband would be there, and I would say, "Right, Mummy is going to go out to the shop now. I will be back soon." My husband would reinforce that. Yes, there was tears at the start. However, like with everything, he changed very, very quickly. And now I can say to him, "Mummy's off to work now," or "Mummy's going to the shops," or "Mummy's going here." "Okay, Mummy, see you later." And no more is said about it. And he's so happy to see me when I come back.
Because you've embedded it, haven't you? Everything you tried, you embedded it.
Yeah. And everything I say to him, I have to make sure that I do exactly what I say.
Oh, yeah.
So even if there is a punishment, for example, like when he started school, when he very first started school, there was still elements of hitting and pushing. So I had to put in place consequence. So when I pick him up, and if he'd had an incident at school, there wouldn't be a chocolate treat on the way home. There wouldn't be iPad when he got home. And at first, we'd have tears in the back of the car, and he would scream, "I want it, I want it, I want it." Now, if there's the very rare occasion that he's had an incident at school, and he gets in the car, and I'll say, "Okay, there's no Freddo and there's no iPad," and he sits there and go, "Okay, I try again tomorrow." And you feel so awful, because you just think, right, but
I am going to interject, because I do think what you did as well, and what lots of parents do, which is really wonderful, as they start learning, as you start learning, you were doing a lot of, like, with school, liaising with school, weren't you, so that they understand, right, so what was happening before, what was happening, why did he hit? It's not that he's getting a consequence for just hitting. I mean, that was down to you because things were happening at school, but you were helping school understand, you know, there's a reason, isn't there, if he's dysregulated or something upset him or someone's got in his space. So lots of parents do that. Helen did that really well, start sharing with schools to help them think a little bit more about what's going on for that child.
Definitely. And I know at the beginning when he started school, he was so happy, and it started off, you know, they had to get to know him, and so there was a bit of a bump in the road come November where I was called in because, you know, he was hitting and pushing and he was just ruling the roost. So me and my husband went in and we had a chat with them, and we gave everything that we had that we'd learned from Incredible Years, and they said, can we use time out? And I said, absolutely, you can use time out. Never really used time out at home because I had all these other tools to use. I didn't think I needed it, but obviously his behaviour in a setting at school or in early years was always worse than what it was at home.
Didn't you explain how time out works in the eye? Didn't you? I remember that.
So I said, if you're going to do time out, you need to call it time out to calm down. You need to make it more of a positive thing than a negative thing. So they took that on board and they implemented that in school. I know they didn't really want to do it, which I can completely understand, because it's not a nice thing to sit there, to have your child sat there and scream. However, they did it, and they did it really well. And within, I want to say 2 to 3 weeks, he'd pretty much stopped hitting, pushing. He's now able to tell them when he feels dysregulated. So every day before he went into school, and even to this day, we'll say to him, my husband, for example, will say to him every morning before school, no hitting, no pushing, and then, but most of all, have fun. And, you know, he's absorbed that. And I say to him, what do you do if you feel angry? And he says, I put my hand up and say, help me, I feel angry.
Oh, help me, I feel angry.
So instead of hitting and pushing, he then goes to somebody and says, help me, you know, and he does do that. And he'll ask his teacher or his TA, please, can I go to the learning hub? And they'll be like, yes. So they'll take him off for 15, 20 minutes. He calms down, he comes back, joins the group. He's got friends, he's joining in, he's reading, he's writing, he's a really lovely, kind, caring little boy who I really enjoy his company. He's really good. I can take him out now for the day. He will now cue to a certain extent. Whereas at one point he would not cue at all.
Helen, could you imagine when we first met and you were crying that you would be describing him like this?
Definitely not. That's
because of all the work you've put in, you and Damien.
He is a different child, and he has amazed a lot of people, a lot of the professionals. His paediatrician said to me and Damien, I think it was about a year ago, I don't think he'd even had his diagnosis at that point. And she said to us, through the Incredible Years programme, she said, you have changed the course of that boy's life.
Oh,
She said to us, and me and my husband were absolutely delighted. And you could see the change in him. And when we use the strategies on him, he changes, he absorbs it, he reacts to it. And it's been such a positive experience. I mean, it's not been an easy journey, and it isn't easy. And I can see why a lot of people...
It's work, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. I can see why a lot of people can struggle with certain elements of it, because it is really tough. And you do question yourself as a parent. I mean, you have to completely change how you do things. And anything, like how you've been brought up, you need to... I said to Mum, we need to take that completely out of the equation and just use this, which we both did, and he's responded to it, and he's responded well. and I think now he's got a really good relationship with us, and he's now using it with other adults and with other kids, and he gives eye contact and he interacts with other people, and it's brilliant. And his school have been amazing, really, really amazing, with how they're also sharing their strategies with us, which we're bringing home, we're doing at home with him. So we're working together, and he's just improving all the time. I mean, you know, we'll get to a certain point where he will change again.
Oh, always.
And we'll have to switch things up again. But, you know, I now have the tools from this course to be able to do that. So I recommend it to everybody.
Oh.
So when I started, I remember I needed a hope story. I know that the programme was evidence-based, but I felt it would have been beneficial to have somebody tell me what their experience was, to give me some sort of hope that what I was doing wasn't going to be a waste of time. So I ended up writing a hope story for Incredible Years, because I've heard of parents who are where I am now, and I just feel like, you know, I feel that I want to be able to say to those people that I've been where you are. I know it's isolating. I know it's a horrible situation to be in, but you're not on your own. And, you know, I mean, my son has additional needs, and although the programme isn't necessarily for children with additional needs, it does help. So it's definitely worth a go. I mean, for me, the changes that it's brought about for my son have just been absolutely worthwhile. It's been worth all the tears. It's been worth absolutely every amount of effort that me and my family have put into it. So what I would say to other parents is just do it. Have faith in it. You've got to live and breathe it. And it's not easy, but if you do it, you will reap the rewards, and your children will thank you for it in the end. You know, it brings such a bond that, for me, I never thought I'd have with my son, and I now enjoy his company, and I enjoy going to pick him up from school and planning things to do with him. We went on our first abroad holiday last year, and I remember when we got there and the kids were in bed and we sat on the sofa, and I said to my husband, I cannot believe how well that went. It was just absolutely seamless. Both kids were absolutely wonderful, and they had such a good holiday, and we're really looking forward to going again this year. Whereas 2 years ago, we had a very, very different experience on a holiday in this country. It was horrendous. Ted was absolutely awful, and that was before we started the programme. So to have two completely different holidays within a year apart was just incredible. So it's definitely worth doing. It really, really is, and the support's there as well. And Debs is amazing.
I think you've kind of summed it up, haven't you? That actually it works. It's powerful, but at the same time, it's quite hard. You've got to live, eat, and breathe it, haven't you? And you did.
You do.
And then some people might just do a little bit of that and see a change, you know. But yeah, you've done it. I think you've just changed how you are, so that
you've got to change how you are as a parent. You've got to be open to change,
open to change,
willing to do it. And
yeah,
if you do it, you will. It's not easy to change yourself.
No,
you know, and you're trying to change your child, so you need to change yourself. And we are a much happier, calmer, harmonious family for it.
Aww,
so
that's it.
No, it's in terms of him, it's all good.
That's the DIY. That's the
program. He's got a bright future, and I can now see that he has so much potential, whereas before I couldn't see it. And he's incredibly caring and very, very sensitive. I was told once that he didn't recognise any emotion. And he absolutely does.
Of course he does.
And he can label emotion. He actually told me he was jealous the other day. He's 5.
Wow.
And he's like, Mummy, I feel jealous. And, you know, you've got to... I was really taken aback, and I praised him for recognising that emotion and just sort of explained to him, you know, it's all right to feel like that.
Yeah.
People do feel like that, but, you know, why trying to explain that to a 5-year-old is very, very difficult. But
and you don't have to. What you've done is you've obviously been using the coach and labeling emotions so much that he's extending his emotional vocabulary to be able to say, I feel jealous.
Yeah.
I feel, and because he can say, I feel jealous, you know, you're able to have that conversation with. That's really powerful. Use big words with little ones, they will use them. You link them to the emotions. God, that's amazing.
He picks up a lot now, and he gets it.
He gets it.
He's very cognitively, he's completely and utterly switched on. We met my daughter's friend for a play date the other week, and he stood and he cried, and I said, what's the matter? And he went, where are my friends? And it didn't even occur to me that, you know, that he'd want the same thing. So this weekend just gone, we've had a meet up with one of his friends, and he was absolutely over the moon. And again, 2 years ago, I never would have thought I'd been able to do that.
No.
And he's sociable. He can express himself more.
But can I just ask, because you're talking a lot about what Ted is doing and what he's achieved, but what is it that you're doing or you've carried on doing that makes him able to do all this and say, I am jealous and play with this? What is it that you are doing? And Damien, what have you done?
We implement all the IY strategies daily. So there's daily persistence coaching, there's daily praise. I try, where possible, don't always do it every day. I hold my hands up, but try and do some child-led play. It's very easy to just come home and stick him on the iPad.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you've been at work and you've got tea to make, but I always...
And that's okay, there's a time for that, Helen. Don't be hard on yourself.
I always mention that I do make sure that we have a set bedtime routine, which I think helps anyway, but I spend sort of 15 minutes before bedtime. We'll read a story. We'll do our own silly little routine with him. And I think that is just enough to sort of...
Of course, fill up his psychological piggy bank.
Fill it up. So, it does eat into our evening sometimes. But
Well, this is it, because you're putting the work into that. I always think of it like beforehand, not just you, but lots of parents, you're putting so much energy and so much work, and it's so depleting putting the energy into dealing with behaviours that challenge. Why not put that energy and that time into...
I've used it on my husband before.
Hey, these strategies, I totally believe that, the listening, the coaching, the praise, they work with adults, they work with teenagers. It's an approach. It's a life approach, I believe. Yeah.
My daughter has copied me in the past.
Modelling. She's copying you.
She's very, very bright and absorbs the energy that we give off, and she does it with us, and she does it outside as well with other kids and other adults. So it's
powerful ripple effect.
It does affect you. It's a very difficult thing to deal with when your child's got challenging behaviour. Especially when you feel like you're being judged by people on the outside. Not everybody, but when you're in a supermarket and your child decides to throw a tantrum over the smallest of things, and you've got people looking, and it's really, really difficult. And I can see when it happens to somebody else, I really feel for that person.
Can I? It's just made me think of one question. If I can just ask this, I suppose before the programme starts, what did you expect in terms of, like, I'm thinking for other parents as well, did you feel like it would be a programme that would tell you this is what you do, this is what you're going to do, and it's not, because it isn't that approach, so how would you describe how it feels? Because we don't come along like Super Nanny and say, right, you need to do, how does it feel? How is that process? How would you describe it?
It's because when I first started it, I thought you were going to come in and tell me I know from our first meeting, I thought you were going to say to me, right, you need to do this, this, and this will happen. But we're human beings. It doesn't work like that, does it? You've got to, the strategies, you do the strategies, and then you get the response. It's not as simple as saying, right, just do this and this will happen. You've got to, it's quite hard to, I find it quite hard.
It is hard.
It is very, very difficult.
So you make up your own goal at the end. You decide how you're going to implement it. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't think for one second that he would be, he would have changed this much. I thought that I would have just got some tools for dealing with his behaviour. So, for example, a timeout strategy. I didn't think that I would get strategies to cope with, to bond with him and everything that came with it.
And when we got to time out, you didn't even want to. Which is
where
we need to be. No. You didn't need to.
No, no. He was responding to all the positive strategies we were using, like the praise. Yeah. And after a while, I didn't even use ignore that much because his behaviour had started to reduce.
That's where you need to
at home anyway.
At home. One thing at a
time.
It
was extremely challenging for the settings that he was in, and I know that his nursery and his playgroup that he was in before he went to school did an amazing job with it.
Yeah,
and they really,
it's a whole load of factors, isn't it, that have helped him. Can I ask just one more question? How did because you kept dipping into the book.
Yes,
you might not have read it in a linear way, but you did. How does the reading help with everything that you're learning? And do you still use it now?
I do still use it now. I do. It's never far away. It's not in a box or anything or filed away somewhere. It's always within arm's length because I use it for my daughter if I need it, for anxiety, or if I need it just to refresh my memory about the child-led play or the persistence coaching. Because sometimes life does get in the way, and I sit there and think, right, I need to do this, whether he's had a tough week at school or he's starting to display bits of behaviour that I think, oh, hang on, I'm not happy with this. I'll reread the chapter and then go back into it, and it kind of resets him almost.
And we need a reset, don't we? Sometimes we need a reminder.
Definitely. Yeah. I wish I'd had this before his toddler years. If I'd had this in the toddler years, especially through COVID, I feel like I would have been better off with managing his behaviour, because the toddler years are hard anyway, and there's so many tools and strategies in the IY to deal with toddlers. It just made perfect sense. I mean, I think it should be in schools. I think it should be taught to parents, quite early on, when they're babies, really. Maybe at the weaning stage where you.
There is a baby IY in Manchester. Yeah, there's the baby IY. But so it's just thinking about that early intervention is so crucial because it can change the course of everything, can't it?
Absolutely can.
And
it has changed the course of my boy's life.
Oh,
as quoted by our paediatrician.
Oh,
she was really impressed with how he responded to it, and even the autism specialist that's been into school to see him, she saw him in November when he was still displaying some behaviours, and she's seen him after school have implemented the strategies, and it's only been 3 months, and she said she can't believe it's the same child because he's absolutely phenomenal.
That's because of you and Damien,
just spreading the word.
Spread the word.
Spread the word.